Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys. Why European city? How most European cities are insanely well located. General knowledge. Great channel. Oh, preemptive light. Let's go. Hope you're all doing good. Great. Good.
They are where they are at a map of Europe.
Original link to the video, top description below that, Discord.
Have you ever looked at a map of Europe, pointed out all the major cities, and wondered why they are where they are? Europe's cities are arguably some of the most well-placed in the world, and this has allowed them throughout history to benefit from those locations. Even today, in modern times, European cities are often seen as models of what cities should be, being only surpassed by some Asian ones in most indicators. I came across an interesting article a while back titled 5 Reasons the World Looks to European Cities. Granted, it was published by the European Central Bank, so there is likely to be some bias in valuing their own, but they point out a series of advantages that European cities have today. These advantages are a result of the policies put into place by their governments at local, national, and EU levels, but many of those policies are possible due to their development and growth throughout history. Arguably, one of the main reasons for that development is the place in which they are located. If you've ever played civilization games, you know how important it is to choose where you settle your city. Most cities in Europe and in the world are placed in strategic locations that will benefit their settlement and growth, but some are luckier than others, and that luck or skill in choosing the right place benefits them in a way that allows for further growth and development. So in this video, I want to take a look at some of Europe's best placed cities, understanding 3 simple things. First, why they are located where they are. Second, how they were created and developed. And third, how that location has benefited them throughout history up to today. Let's quickly list out the cities we'll be talking about here. First, Istanbul, then...
I was about to say, I know like a lot of southeastern American states have a lot of their capitals not on the coastline, but a bit inland, and they're placed where, at the point where rivers become navigable, rather than like, you know, whitewater, like rafts and stuff, but to the point where it's pretty flat and can sail to the sea, and they all kind of line up with that, you know, geographical line.
Amsterdam, London, Gibraltar, Sevilla, St. Petersburg, quickly mentioning Copenhagen as well, Lisbon, and Paris. Let's start with the ones on the thumbnail. First, Istanbul. Istanbul's strategic location is almost too obvious when we look at a map.
Yeah, it's so bright. One sec. Insano bright. Don't worry, I'll be... Okay, that's a bit better.
Istanbul. Istanbul's strategic location is almost too obvious when we look at a map. It's located between 2 continents, Europe and Asia, but before Istanbul was Istanbul and was just Constantinople, being much smaller and only located on the European side, its location was already strategic. Its placement allows for the control of the Dardanelles Strait, which connects the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, the only access to open sea for countries like Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine, or Georgia, and also being very important for Russia, as well as any country that wishes to trade by sea with those.
Guys, so I asked a similar question about like is the Caribbean Sea are the Caribbean Sea and Mediterranean Seas technically part of the Atlantic Ocean because they're connected? Caribbean Sea much more than others, and I've heard answers of no, but okay, then is the Aegean Sea a part of the Mediterranean Sea? You know, and is the Adriatic Sea a part of the Mediterranean Sea? Or, you know,
nations. The city was founded as Byzantium in the 7th century BC. In 330, the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great made it his imperial capital, eventually renaming it to Constantinople after himself. The city grew in size and influence, eventually becoming a beacon of the Silk Road and one of the most important cities in history. It's interesting that even at a point in history when sea trade wasn't nearly as prevalent and important as it is today, the city was already strategically placed placed as a gateway from Asia into Europe with high importance in global.
And I think the Ottomans, or was it the Ottoman Empire? Yeah. I think the Ottomans, you know, controlling this part of the world here, a big reason for the Age of Exploration starting off was either they highly increased the price of goods or just didn't really allow a lot of products to go into Europe. And I think that's what kind of incentivized a lot of the Portuguese and Spanish explorers.
Trade. But we can see on this comparing map that the old Constantinople was already located in a strategic location on the straits, with the modern Istanbul expanding from it. This is, in my opinion, the best well-placed city in Europe. Then Amsterdam. Amsterdam was founded on the Amstel River. Most prosperous cities in the world are located next to rivers. It is important that there is a good source of fresh water near a settlement, and it also provides good irrigation for potential farming. It originated as a small fishing village in the 12th century, named after the local dam built to stop the Amstel River from flooding, but grew greatly in importance about 500 years later. In some of these, it's something of a situation of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Did Amsterdam grow immensely because the Netherlands became a strong colonial power, or did it become a strong colonial power partially because Amsterdam was so well placed? During the Dutch Golden Age in the 17th century, Amsterdam became one of the most important ports in the world. The large bay around it offered a natural protection for its port, favoring it in comparison to other coastal regions, and leading it to become a center for finance and trade in Europe. Today, Amsterdam is still one of Europe's main cities due to the growth it saw throughout history, mainly in these colonial times, in which its location was crucial. Moving west is London. London is located on a river as well, the Thames, a criteria that is checked by almost all cities on this list. The first
You guys better yell at them whenever I say the Thames River. The Thames River?
settlement, the Thames, a criteria that is checked by almost all cities on this list. The first main settlement here was built by the Romans in the year 100 as the capital of their Britannia province. It was founded on the point of the river where it was narrow enough to bridge and venture out into the sea or continental Europe. After the Romans left the city, it declined, but in about 680 it became a major port again, then suffering from Viking raids. It was then refounded by King Alfred, and by the 11th century, London was the largest city in England, and its location was strategic due to two reasons. First, the river itself, allowing it to be an important trade port, and second, the river and marshland allowed for great defensive capability. London was effectively an island.
Where Bristol is, right, seems to be like a really good place to have a nice giant city, but I guess London being closer to mainland Europe and would mean it would be more popular. What is the river entering into this? Can you? Oh, you can't even see. Why can't you see my? Yeah, you know what I mean. Right,
only accessible through the old London Bridge. From the 16th to 17th century, London benefited from decentralized politics and the maritime trade expansion. Like I mentioned at the start, it's not only the location and not only the policies, but a combination of both that make the success of a city. Because
I saw that in Jay Foreman video, Matt Men. This is the bridge that became a alleyway town district,
but a combination of both that make the success of a city. Because London was in a river/coastal region, it allowed it to benefit from this. Speaking of well-located things, one thing that can be very well located is your own plot of land in Scotland. This video is sponsored by Established Titles. They're a fantastic
These are sponsoring everyone.
Service that allows you to simultaneously help.
If any of the advertisements on the videos I watch, guys, interest you, please make sure to use their link. It helps them out, all right?
save the Scottish woodland, and become a lord or lady in title, something you can get on your credit card, plane tickets, and things like that. You can get it for yourself, or it can be a fantastic gift to family or friends. When you purchase their pack, you're granted a small plot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, with a unique plot number so you can see the exact location of your land. In the mail, you will receive a printable certificate to show off the title. I just got mine and it looks really good. Established titles will plant a tree with every order and work with global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. It makes an amazing last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running a Black Friday sale, plus if you use the code General Knowledge, you get an additional 10% off. So go to establishedtitles.com/general knowledge to get your gifts and support the channel. The first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot within a few minutes of walking distance. Now back to the video. All the way in southern Spain, but still a part of the United Kingdom, at least for now, Gibraltar. Gibraltar's strategic value is very similar to that of Istanbul, and we can see it as soon as we see a map of its location. It is the gateway between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. Prior to the construction of the Suez Canal, all settlements in the Mediterranean coast, as well as full-on countries like Italy, Greece, all of the Balkans, Turkey, and North African countries, had to go through here in order to access the rest of the world by sea.
Until the Suez.
An Almohad Sultan ordered that a permanent settlement, including a castle, be built here. It received the name of Medinat al-Fath, City of Victory. It changed hands between the Moors and the Spanish a bunch of times, and then in 1713, the Treaty of Utrecht granted it to Great Britain, who, as the United Kingdom, still hold it up to today.
It's crazy.
In fact, in 1779, the French and Spanish attempted to capture it from the British during the American War of Independence, but they were unsuccessful. Its strategic value actually increased with the opening of the Suez Canal, controlled by the British as well, as it lay on the sea route between the UK and the...
Because any nation, you know, in Europe, kind of in the north, that doesn't have access to the Mediterranean is going to have to pass through there, even, you know, to use the Suez Canal, unless they want to go around Africa. Yep.
The British Empire in the East. Arguably, at this time, British control over the Mediterranean was very significant, and half of it was because of the settlement.
Malta?
Gibraltar isn't a great city today, nor is it vastly prosperous, but its settlement is very well located, and at one time in history, its control meant great rule over the entire Mediterranean. And just nearby is Sevilla. During the colonial age, Sevilla was the main Spanish port. Sevilla is over 2,000 years old as a settlement, but its real growth only took place when it was chosen by the Spanish crown to be the headquarters for its transatlantic trade. Most Spanish ships that went to their Southern American or Asian colonies left and came back to Sevilla. This led to a tremendous growth of the settlement. Its choice was somewhat odd because Sevilla isn't a coastal city, rather an interior one.
There is a river.
Located on the Guadalquivir River, which is large enough to sail through, it served the purpose, even though it wasn't founded with this objective. Today, that strategic importance has been surpassed, but Sevilla is still a great city. All the way back up north is St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg was built by Russian Emperor Peter the Great in 1703. In Russia, it's historically and culturally associated with the birth of the Russian Empire and Russia's entry into modern history as a European great power. Part of this was symbolic, but another part was a direct effect.
Why did they change the capital to Moscow again? I forget.
European great power. Part of this was symbolic, but another part was a direct effect. The conquest of this territory and the construction of the city and port created a direct access to the Baltic Sea and the North Atlantic for the Russian Empire. Its location was extremely strategic on the coast of this northern sea to replace the old port of Arkhangelsk, which froze during the winter. It was so important that it became the new Russian capital for a while. Peter the Great admired and took great influence from the Dutch Empire, especially its naval capabilities, perhaps taking inspiration from Amsterdam when it came to the establishment of the city.
Wait a second, can you get by boat from the Baltic to Moscow through rivers? I mean, it looks like it connects. I just don't know if these are all navigable. Oh, or does it actually? Maybe not. Or does it? Huh?
Also related to the Baltic North Sea is Copenhagen. Copenhagen is located at a great point to control access between...
Like, Europe is it's a continent where, like, there are so many great, like, with the US, for example, or China, or you know, other nations that are more kind of, or other like, obviously Europe isn't a country, but other countries that are more kind of uniformly shaped. You know, Europe has, you know, so it's like a giant peninsula sticking out of Asia. It really should be kind of part of Asia, obviously one continent, but like, there are so many nooks and crannies, and you know, you have the Mediterranean Sea with so many little inlets and everything that could have strategic cities. And there are just so many opportunities that are very obvious places that these cities would grow because of what they're next to, whether it be a land bridge or a boat passageway.
These two bodies of water in similar style to Istanbul or Gibraltar. And back to the Iberian Peninsula, we have Lisbon. Lisbon is a great example of a location which arguably shaped the country's history. It wasn't a very strategic location to start with, but its location proved to be incredibly useful, similarly to Sevilla at one point, but maintaining it up to modern times. Let's find out how and why. Lisbon was founded at the end of the Tejo River. According to legend, the location was named for the mythical Ulysses, who would have founded a city after sailing there. But the real origin seems to be Olisipo, the Roman settlement. Throughout history, Lisbon changed hands from the Romans to the Visigoths and then the Moors, finally being conquered by Portugal in 1147. But despite being at the mouth of the river, its location wasn't particularly strategic. However, with the development of Portuguese sea navigation and its expansion out into the ocean, leading the growth of European colonialism, Lisbon became an important sea.
I love, like, learning about evolution of shipping, you know, ocean-worthy ships. And it's funny, like, they went from the more like super high stern, and then like a really low center deck, and then a higher bow, it's almost like a U, and I wonder why they changed that.
Out strategic. However, with the
and like the backs look like they're much more
development of Portuguese sea navigation, Lisbon became
a narrow in the back
important city in Europe and the world. It was the point of departure and arrival of various ships, and like Amsterdam, it became a key colonial port. Being the westernmost main city and port of Europe, it also gained further importance with the arrival of Europeans in America and the beginning of globalization. And finally for this video, Paris. Paris is arguably the opposite of Lisbon and Sevilla, a city which upon its creation made a lot of strategic sense, having lost some of it throughout time. Also built on
such a beautiful city, Paris.
A river, but not at its mouth.
I was going to say something better.
Up the river on purpose, likely in order to defend itself from coastal raids. The first native settlement by the Parisi also built on a river, but not at its mouth. Paris was built up the river on purpose, likely in order to defend itself from coastal raids. The first native settlement by the Parisi tribe was conquered by the Romans in 52 BC, which led to the further development of it. Paris's strategic importance was related with its many bridges, which prevented ships from passing and raiding the city. These were established during the successful defense in the siege of Paris of 885. The early strategic...
By who? I gotta learn about that.
Value led to great development.
I'm gonna learn about that. Viking raid. Oh God, where am I? Oh God, where am I? Oh no. Jeez, where am I? Oh, Jesus Christ. No. Jesus, sorry.
Development of the city and its establishment as the French capital. Today, the location on the river is no longer relevant. We don't have Viking raids anymore, but its central location in France and in Europe remains of value. And that initial strategic location led to a growth and importance that lasts up to today. So, Those are some of the most well-placed cities in Europe. Understanding why they were created in these places, how the establishment of the settlements took place, and how they developed throughout time, as well as learning a little about how these locations have benefited them and their development throughout history up to today. Do you agree or disagree with my view on this? And are there any other strategically or well-placed cities that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching this video. Subscribe if you want, and I will see you next time for more general knowledge.
Really cool. Did you like Paris #1? Cool video. I'm surprised he didn't say Genoa, Venice ones. It seems like those are pretty strategically placed. I think Venice is really well placed because all of like the really super fertile land like in the valley in northern Italy, like kind of like cradled by the Alps and the what is the mountain range in Italy? And that like it's at the mouth of the of that area, right? And on the Adriatic. I thought that Venice might be a good one. Love y'all. Hope you're all doing well, and I will see you guys next time. All right. Did I have questions? I'd love if you guys can answer my questions or just see your comments in general. Bye, guys.